Mr. Chairman, with 19 delegations in the room, we have enough quorum to proceed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. And so special that we start on time on the last meeting of the year. Sorry, I'm speaking too loud. Okay, so I'm pleased to declare open this regular meeting of the Permanent Council. Which I will continue as soon as everyone is seated. Yeah. Still have a few people coming in, I think. Yeah. Okay, so again, good afternoon, colleagues. I am pleased to declare open this regular meeting of the Permanent Council, which is the last regular meeting of 2024 and has been convened to consider the items contained in the order of business document CP/OD-2529/24, Rev 2, which I hereby submit for the consideration of this Council. There being no observations, we will proceed to adopt it without amendment. Adopted. Colleagues, to proceed with the second item on our agenda, I propose that we move forward with the approval of the recommendation submitted by the chair of the Committee on Inter-American Summits Management and Civil Society Participation in OAS Activities, CISC, in accordance with the guidelines for the participation of civil society organizations in OAS activities adopted by this Council through its resolution 759. This recommendation contained in document CP/CISC-1170/24 pertains to the request of 12 civil society organizations to participate in the activities of the organization. Furthermore, the chair suggests instructing the Secretariat to ensure that these organizations are duly registered in the OAS registry. If there are no objections, it is so agreed. Agreed. The next item on the agenda, at the request of the chair of the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs, we are tasked with considering 2 draft resolutions and receiving a report on the acceptance of inheritances, gifts, and bequests by the Secretary General in accordance with the provisions of Article 88 of the General Standards to govern the operations of the General Secretariat. In this regard, I'm sorry, it's just been brought to my attention that the chair of the CAP is not here as yet. So with your agreement, we will move on to item 4 and then we will come back to item 3 when the chair is here. Huh? He's here? So we'll go to item 4 and give him a chance to come. So let's move on to item 4. And item 4, at the request of the Permanent Council of Canada, we will commemorate the International Transgender Day of Remembrance, which has been held annually on November the 20th for the last 25 years to honor the memories of those who have lost their lives due to transphobia, that is, anti-transgender violence and hate. In this regard, first, I would like to give the floor to the permanent representative of Canada, Ambassador Stuart Savage, for the reading of a declaration on the International Transgender Day of Remembrance. Ambassador Savage, you have the floor.
Ça marche, OK. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Les États membres du Core Group LGBTI+ de l'OEA se joignent à la commémoration de la Journée du souvenir trans. Le 20 novembre de chaque année, nous honorons la vie des personnes trans et de diverses identités de genre qui ont été assassinées au cours de la dernière année. Selon le groupe Transgender Europe, 321 cas impliquant des meurtres de personnes trans ont été signalés au cours de la période du 1er octobre 2022 au 30 octobre 2023. De ce nombre, les 2/3, ça veut dire 269, se seraient produits dans les Amériques. La dignité et l'égalité entre les personnes inhérentes à chaque être humain sont des principes fondamentaux consacrés dans la Déclaration universelle des droits de l'homme, dans la Déclaration américaine des droits et devoirs de l'homme, ainsi que dans la Convention américaine relative aux droits de l'homme. Mr. Chair, today we highlight that trans and gender-diverse persons are entitled to the recognition, enjoyment, exercise, and protection in equal conditions of all human rights and fundamental freedoms. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights has indicated that transgender persons have historically been affected by exclusion, stigmatization, violence, and discrimination based on their sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, and continue to be subject to high levels of violence, harassment, and other abuses. Violence against trans persons deprives them of their enjoyment of human rights. As stated by the IACHR, violence based on prejudice generally goes unpunished because few perpetrators tend to be arrested, charged, or tried. The lack of due diligence to address these murders and other acts of violence is a serious omission that serves to perpetuate chronic recurrences and vulnerability for trans and gender-diverse persons. The Inter-American Convention Against All Forms of Discrimination and Intolerance, in force since January 2022, includes in its first article types of discrimination based on sex, sexual orientation, gender, identity, and expression, and recognizes the existence of indirect as well as multiple or aggravated discrimination, and establishes the commitment that the state's parties to prevent, eliminate, and prohibit and punish all acts and manifestations of discrimination and intolerance, including violence. Our region has made advances in promoting and protecting the human rights of LGBTI+ persons. However, important challenges persist in terms of raising awareness and eradicating discrimination, hatred, and prejudice against trans and gender-diverse persons. The member states of the OAS LGBTI+ core group joined the call of the IACHR and other international organizations for all states to adopt the necessary measures to put an end to the discrimination, violence, and exclusion against trans and gender-diverse persons, promoting and protecting their full access and enjoyment of all human rights, in line with their obligations under international human rights law. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador Savage, for reading this declaration on the International Transgender Day of Remembrance, of which the Permanent Council has duly taken note. Next, I would like to ask the Secretariat to play the pre-recorded remarks by the panelists that the United States requested to include in the order of business. Rachel Levine, Assistant Secretary of Health at the United States Department of Health and Human Services. Please proceed.
Hello. Thank you for having me here today. I am Admiral Rachel Levine, the Assistant Secretary for Health at the United States Department of Health and Human Services, she, her pronouns. Transgender Day of Remembrance is a solemn day to remember those that we have lost as a result of transphobia and violence. From my travels throughout the United States, I can tell you that violence and hate are still too prominent, and that violence that targets vulnerable communities poses a threat to public health. All of us should have the ability to live our lives authentically without fear or threats of violence. Transgender people are doctors, nurses, behavioral health providers, and more. We serve in the uniformed services, we are teachers and caregivers, we are family members. But the rhetoric about our lives that is now so pervasive has tried to define us without actually understanding who we are. This rhetoric has led to increased mental health challenges and suicidal ideation. This rhetoric puts public health at risk. We need to continue to work for health equity until everyone living in the Americas can access medically necessary care without judgment or stigma. We need to say publicly to every trans person that it is okay to be you. The attacks on our community have nothing to do with science and nothing to do with medicine, and we all have a role to play in making progress without leaving anyone behind. We must strongly advocate for the most underserved and marginalized in our community, including our trans youth and trans women of color. You should be able to live your life no matter who you are or who you love. Now, I am a positive and optimistic person, and I'd like to leave you with a message of hope. It is important to remember that transgender and non-binary people are thriving in many of our communities across the Americas. But we also know that many transgender individuals are facing significant adversity. Now, I am confident that we can work towards a brighter future for our communities than in past generations. As we move forward, all of us must ensure that no one has to live in the shadows. We must ensure that all people, including transgender and non-binary community members, are not just tolerated or accepted, but welcomed and celebrated for who they are. Now, I am proud to be a transgender woman. I am proud to serve the United States as the Assistant Secretary for Health and the head of the United States Public Health Service Commission Corps. And I am proud of transgender people everywhere who courageously stand up in the face of so many challenges and are visible. Now, the challenges of the last several years have reminded us of a fundamental truth that we truly need each other, that our happiness and our very survival depend upon our connections to one another and to our community. And I would like to conclude my time with a quote from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We shall overcome, because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Thank you.
We thank the United States delegation for that contribution to the consideration of this topic of the order of business, of which the Permanent Council has duly taken note. I now ask if any delegation wishes to take the floor on this agenda item. And I recognize Chile. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Gracias, presidente. Chile quiere agradecer el liderazgo de la delegación de Canadá para traer este tema a la sesión del día. También agradecemos la presentación de la panelista, porque este es un tema que, como pocos, nos permite hacer tangible esta idea de más derechos para más personas. Y estamos hablando, bien lo decía la declaración que leyó el embajador de Canadá, de la que nos hacemos parte, de un grupo de personas que, como bien señala la Comisión Interamericana de Derechos Humanos, son particularmente sujetos de privación de derechos. Entonces nos parece del todo pertinente encontrarnos en este Día de la Memoria Trans, visibilizar lo que viven las personas trans y contar también algunas de las iniciativas que en Chile estamos haciendo para hacer un poco, para andar ese camino que permita que todas las personas puedan ejercer los derechos más elementales, como vivir su vida tranquila, libre de violencia, como nos parece tan básico. Algunas iniciativas de Chile en esa materia que nos gustaría compartir son la Ley de Identidad de Género, la reforma a la Ley Antidiscriminación, que incluye crear una institucionalidad antidiscriminación en la Subsecretaría de Derechos Humanos y un Consejo de Igualdad y No Discriminación donde participan las organizaciones de la sociedad civil, el trabajo de la Mesa Gubernamental por los Derechos de las Personas LGBTIQ+, el programa de salud trans, protocolos de actuación y coordinación cuando estas personas son víctimas de delito, la campaña En Lugar de Violencia, Respeto y muchas otras más. Lo hacemos, lo compartimos porque creemos que en esta materia, como en tantas, tenemos mucho que aprender entre los estados, tenemos que compartir lo que estamos haciendo, tenemos que escuchar a las personas, a sus organizaciones, porque es un tema de particular urgencia cuando hablamos de ejercicio de derechos. Muchas gracias, presidente.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the Mission of Brazil. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Obrigado, presidente. A delegação brasileira também gostaria de agradecer ao Canadá por incluir a comemoração do Dia Internacional da Memória Trans na ordem do dia desta sessão. É uma data para recordar a importância de construir uma sociedade justa e igualitária para todas as pessoas, sem qualquer distinção. A proteção contra a violência e a discriminação deve se fazer acompanhar também de acesso a direitos e condições de vida adequadas, além da igualdade de oportunidades em todos os âmbitos. No Brasil, criamos em janeiro de 2023 a Secretaria Nacional de Políticas para a População LGBTQIAPN+, no âmbito do Ministério dos Direitos Humanos e da Cidadania. Trata-se de estrutura inédita na administração federal que tem permitido avançar nas políticas, a exemplo do lançamento da Estratégia Nacional de Enfrentamento da Violência contra as Pessoas LGBTQIA+. Em dezembro de 23, também foi criado o Grupo de Trabalho de Memória e Verdade das Pessoas LGBTQIA+, no Ministério dos Direitos Humanos, com o objetivo de esclarecer as violações de direitos humanos e propor políticas públicas para combater as violências. No plano internacional, em junho de 2023, o Brasil uniu-se ao grupo de amigos do mandato do perito independente sobre orientação sexual e identidade de gênero do Conselho de Direitos Humanos em Genebra. Aderimos também, em outubro de 2023, à Equal Rights Coalition, aliança intergovernamental composta por 42 estados comprometidos em pôr fim à violência e à discriminação contra lésbicas, gays, bissexuais, transgêneros, intersexuais e outras identidades de gêneros e orientações sexuais em todo o mundo. É importante também assinalar, senhor presidente, que no ano passado o governo brasileiro adotou procedimento simplificado para análise de pedidos de refúgio de pessoas LGBTQIA+, de países que aplicam a pena de morte ou a prisão para gays, lésbicas, bissexuais, travestis e transexuais. Apesar desses importantes avanços e iniciativas, os casos de violações de direitos envolvendo transfobia continuam a crescer no nosso país e, infelizmente, em toda a região, como o meu colega canadense já mencionou. A transfobia envolve atos de discriminação contra a população transgênero, assim como toda forma de intolerância. E aí estão incluídos comportamentos que incitam práticas de violência física, verbal, psicológica ou moral contra essas pessoas. O famoso discurso de ódio, que muita gente não gosta de mencionar aqui na nossa organização, mas que tem sido utilizado particularmente de maneira sórdida contra determinadas minorias para privar direitos e incitar a violência, infelizmente. Por meio de canais públicos de denúncias, como o DISC 100, número do DISC Direitos Humanos, brasileiras e brasileiros podem denunciar anonimamente todos os casos de transfobia presenciados dentro e fora do ambiente profissional. No Brasil, a transfobia é crime desde 2019, quando o nosso Supremo Tribunal Federal reconheceu que atos ofensivos praticados contra pessoas da comunidade LGBTQIA+, podem ser enquadrados como injúria racial. A pena pode ir de 1 a 3 anos de prisão, além de multa, e a chegar até 5 anos de reclusão, se houver divulgação ampla do ato. Em pleno século XXI, senhor presidente, precisamos denunciar e combater veementemente a opressão, o preconceito e a exclusão que enfrenta, infelizmente, a população transgênero. Obrigado, senhor presidente.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of the United States. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the permanent mission of Canada for its leadership as chair of the OAS LGBTI+ core group. Also want to express gratitude to Dr. Rachel Levine for her inspiring remarks today. Her leadership and advocacy for the transgender community embody the very principles we seek to uphold as member states of this organization. Today, as we commemorate the International Transgender Day of Remembrance, we honor the memory of transgender individuals across the Americas who have lost their lives to violence. This solemn occasion also reminds us of the critical work still required to combat transphobia, discrimination, and violence that disproportionately impacts transgender persons. According to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, violence against transgender persons in the Americas remains alarmingly high. Its recent reporting highlights that many transgender individuals face targeted violence due to entrenched stigma and societal exclusion. In some member states, the average life expectancy of a transgender woman is less than 35 years, a stark and unacceptable reality. Chair, the United States reaffirms its unwavering commitment to advancing the human rights of transgender persons. This commitment includes strengthening partnerships with governments, civil society, and international organizations to address the systemic inequities that perpetuate violence and exclusion. Through our programs and policies, we seek to promote the dignity, equity, and safety of all individuals, regardless of gender identity. We also recognize and commend the OAS LGBTI+ core group in its ongoing efforts to bring issues such as this to the forefront of the organization's agenda. Together, we must work to ensure that the OAS remains a platform for amplifying the voices of members of marginalized communities and advancing policies that uphold their rights. So, Mr. Chair, let us honor those we have lost by recommitting ourselves to building societies where all people, including transgender individuals, can live free from fear and violence. As Dr. Levine has underscored this afternoon, every life lost to hate is a call to action. Let us answer that call. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. And we now offer the floor to the delegation of Spain. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente. Quiero tomar la palabra para agradecer a Canadá en su rol de presidencia del Core Group LGTBIQ+ de la OEA la inclusión de este punto en el orden del día. Y quiero también reconocer las palabras de la subsecretaria de Salud del Departamento de Salud de Estados Unidos, Rachel Levine. Y he querido tomar la palabra porque considero que es parte de nuestro trabajo la defensa de la democracia y los derechos humanos, el dar visibilidad a las personas transexuales. España, a través del Ministerio de Exteriores, saben que asumirá la copresidencia de la Coalición por la Igualdad de Derechos, la principal alianza internacional público-privada, formada por 45 estados y organizaciones de la sociedad civil de defensa y promoción de los derechos de las personas LGTBIQ+ en todo el mundo. Y dará a nuestro país, a España, junto con Colombia, la copresidencia por un periodo de 2 años que arranca el próximo 1 de enero. Esta presidencia impulsará diferentes iniciativas que nos gustaría también que tuviesen su eco y repercusión y su espacio en este foro de las Américas de la OEA. Para España, la promoción de los derechos humanos y, en particular, la defensa de la igualdad y la dignidad de las personas LGTBIQ+, no es solo una prioridad de la política exterior dentro de nuestra política exterior feminista, sino un compromiso ético que emana de nuestra historia y de los valores que compartimos como sociedad. Por esa razón, el Gobierno español asume este reto consciente de los enormes retos que supone la lucha por los derechos de las personas LGTBIQ+. Reitero nuestro firme compromiso con los derechos civiles del colectivo como país y también me atrevo a compartir con ustedes la satisfacción de que en España en 2023 se aprobó la última ley trans y que la primera ley que en mi país se aprobó hace 20 años, ya pintamos algunas canas personalmente, tuve el honor de poderla defender desde la tribuna del Congreso de los Diputados. Por tanto, quiero recordar y felicitar la labor del Core Group por su labor y decirles que en mí siempre, en esta embajadora, además de mi país, siempre tendrán una aliada de la defensa de los derechos civiles. En la OEA, en este próximo 2025, seguiremos apoyando el programa PUICA de Registro de Identidad Civil en las Américas para las personas transexuales, entre otras cuestiones. Por último, felicitar nuevamente al Core Group por su labor e invitarles a que continúen su labor con fuerza. Tienen a España de su lado para seguir luchando por la igualdad, la justicia, el respeto y la dignidad de todas las personas. Y también tienen nuestro aliento para desterrar el discurso de odio y discriminación por orientación e identidad sexual. Soñemos un mundo en arcoíris. Gracias.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the Permanent Observer Mission of France. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Non, je voulais simplement m'associer au nom de la France à cette journée de commémoration parce que, vous le savez, on l'a déjà dit dans cette enceinte, la France est fermement engagée pour l'égalité et pour la protection des droits des personnes LGBT et transgenres. Donc vraiment avoir une journée de commémoration, c'est important pour justement, comme le disait notre collègue espagnol, assurer une visibilité et lutter contre les violences dont souffrent ces personnes. Voilà, merci Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Ambassador. And thank you again to the delegation of Canada for bringing this item to the floor. Colleagues, as agreed, we can now return back to item 3, which is at the request of the chair of the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs, the task of considering 2 draft resolutions and receiving a report on the acceptance of inheritances, gifts, and bequests by the Secretary General in accordance with the provisions of Article 88 of the General Standards to govern the operations of the General Secretariat. In this regard, I would like to first inquire whether we can proceed with the approval of the following 2 draft resolutions entitled Transfer of Funds from the 2023 Regular Fund Program Budget to the Capital Fund of the OAS Fellowships, Scholarships, and Training Program, and the second one, special appropriation from the regular fund to cover additional costs of local staff of the Inter-American Children's Institute. Both draft resolutions were agreed upon by the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs during its last meeting held yesterday, Monday, December 16th, as outlined in document CP/CAAP-4032/24 and CP/CAAP-3033/24. So if there are no objections, then both draft resolutions are hereby approved. Approved. The next item referred by the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs is the presentation of the verbal report on the acceptance of inheritances, gifts, and bequests by the Secretary General in accordance with the provisions of Article 88 of the General Standards to govern the operations of the General Secretariat. So now I would like to invite the Chair of the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs to take the floor and address this matter. Ambassador Neymer, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good afternoon. I do apologize for having been absent. I was attending to matters of state, so to the Council, I apologize. Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon and season's greetings to all. I'm deeply honored to report to the Permanent Council in my capacity as the Chair of the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs. Excellencies, colleagues, as you may be aware, earlier this month, Dr. Maurice Robert, former director of the Department of Economic Development, made her earthly departure. Posthumous recognition was afforded to Dr. Robert for her impactful representation and work here at the Organization of American States. That was undertaken in both councils, the Permanent Council and CD, during recent meetings. Moreover, consistent and reflective of the dedication and commitment that Dr. Robert afforded this organization, in a grand gesture of generosity, Dr. Robert has bequeathed the OAS with financial resources to underwrite expenses related to specific undertakings that falls within the remit of the Secretariat for Integral Development. Namely, the resources are earmarked for Economic Development Rapid Facility, as per Dr. Robert's final wishes and instructions. Accordingly, with much bewilderment, upon learning of the donation and the likelihood that the contributions would encounter a reduction of approximately $22,500 per the ICR policy, the matter was referred by the chair for legal vetting. Consequently, the General Secretariat was officially also invited to acknowledge and confirm receipt of $175,000 from Dr. Robert and report its findings to the Committee on Budgetary Affairs at its recent meeting, which was held yesterday. By way of full disclosure, the General Secretariat has undertaken its due diligence and has confirmed that this contribution will not be subject to indirect cost recovery. As such, this conclusion is in compliance with Article 88 of the General Standards entitled Acceptance of Inheritances, Gifts, and Bequests, which states, and I quote, "The Secretary General may accept on behalf of the organization inheritances, gifts, or bequests for uses consistent with the purposes of the organization, advising the Permanent Council thereof." I close quotes. The CAP took note of the information provided by the Secretariat, and in complete adherence with its obligations today, the CAP hereby informs the Permanent Council of the bequest, thereby concluding the procedural requirements, thus enabling SETI to utilize the full $175,000, thereby honoring Dr. Robert's wishes without impediment. Further, the CAP initiated deliberations in respect of creating a fund that could be named after Dr. Robert as a way of recognizing her contributions, not only monetarily, but her life's work here at the OAS. This proposal obviously requires further exploration, not only with SETI and SAF and CAP, but also with Dr. Robert's family and the principals involved. In closing, I express gratitude to Dr. Robert, her biological family, and her professional family, with the latter operating under the guidance and leadership of Executive Secretary Kim Osborne, whom Dr. Robert valued highly, thereby entrusting her with this important and significant undertaking. In true Maurice fashion, I therefore entreat us all to go placidly amidst the noise and haste. Excellencies, colleagues, I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Ambassador Nehmer, for the presentation of this report, of which the Permanent Council has duly taken note. I now ask if there are any delegations that wish to take the floor on this agenda item. If not, we do. Okay, so I see no requests for the floor. So just to wrap up, we would want today to acknowledge this great act of generosity by Ms. Maurice Robert, who during her lifetime was a constant example of honesty, kindness, and perseverance at the organization. The contribution that she requested to be made in her name to the organization makes us feel humble and extremely grateful. Maurice will be remembered with the highest respect as a dedicated international civil servant. As we've said before, she will be greatly missed. Distinguished colleagues, it is now with great respect and gratitude that I now take this opportunity to bid farewell to Ambassador Frank Mora, Permanent Representative of the United States to the Organization of American States. Ambassador Mora presented his credentials to the Secretary General on January 18, 2023, and since then, he has served with distinction in his role as permanent representative. Ambassador Mora served as chair of the Committee on Inter-American Summits Management and Civil Society Participation in OAS Activities at CISC until the transfer of the chair of the Summits of the Americas process from the United States to the Dominican Republic in November of 2023. Currently, Ambassador Mora serves as Vice Chair of the Permanent Council, Acting Chair of the Permanent Council's Working Group on Haiti, as well as the President of the Ambassadorial Support Group of the Columbus Memorial Library. His leadership has also extended across various important initiatives and groups within our organization, including his role as President of the Voluntary Group for the follow-up of the Inter-American Democratic Charter, coordinator of the OAS LGBTI Core Group, and coordinator of the Women's and Girls' Rights and Gender Equality Coordination Group. Ambassador Mora's diplomatic skills have been a true asset to this organization. His unwavering dedication to the cause of Haiti and his tireless efforts to foster consensus in our debates and decision-making processes have played a crucial role in the success of numerous initiatives. Moreover, his commitment to the defense of democracy and human rights has been a constant throughout his tenure, shaping his approach to the challenges we face as a region. Throughout his tenure, Ambassador Mora has been a tireless advocate for the values and principles that unite our hemisphere. His contributions have strengthened the hemispheric cooperation, enhanced dialogue on human rights, democracy, and hemispheric security, and furthered the OAS's mission of peace, development, gender equality, and inclusion. So on behalf of the Permanent Council and the entire organization, I would like to express our sincere appreciation for his exemplary service. And if I can take the liberty to speak in my capacity as the Ambassador of Belize, I want to also thank Ambassador Mora for the cooperation that we received. He was the Vice Chair while I was Chair. And I must say that I found him to be an excellent person to bounce ideas off, and he's always willing to discuss and to give advice. And we also appreciate that as the representative of the United States, he was very willing and encouraged us smaller countries to be heard and to take account of what we had to say and our concerns. So for that, personally, as the Ambassador of Belize, Ambassador, I thank you very much. So we thank Ambassador Mora for his invaluable contributions to the OAS and this Permanent Council. And we will always remember your dedication on behalf of your government to the shared goals of peace, human rights, democracy, hemispheric security, and development in our hemisphere. And so I now give the floor to the coordinators of the regional groups for your interventions. And we recognize the delegation of Antigua and Barbuda. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, you will recognize that I've only just arrived at this meeting. And I did so because I could not allow Ambassador Mora to depart this assembly without speaking at this meeting. Frank Mora's physical arrival in our council at the OAS was preceded by his considerable reputation for fairness, for balance, and for careful research. These are necessary disciplines for the distinguished academic and writer that he is. His significant body of published works on Latin America and the Caribbean demonstrated that he was intimately familiar with the circumstances and challenges that confront the majority of states of this organization. Unquestionably, Ambassador Mora brought to this role the qualities that made him a successful and respected academic. From the time of his arrival, he demonstrated a willingness to listen to the concerns of others and a readiness to narrow differences so as to achieve inclusion and to eschew division. Undoubtedly, he diligently pursued the promotion and advancement of the causes of his own country, and he championed the principles for which it stands. But he was all the more remarkable because while he could have used the muscle of his country's might to attain its ends, brooking no dissent or disagreement, as some of his predecessors did, he chose the path of dialogue, discussion, and persuasion. For him, 18 votes was not enough, because a simple majority registered discontent and dissatisfaction of a significant number of others. Frank Mora wanted convinced support, born of reasonable argument and rational compromise. In this connection, Frank Mora is a rare representative of a big power. He did not ignore those who did not agree, nor was he satisfied to go along only with those who did. But, Mr. Chairman, he was much more effective because of that stance. I recall many telephone calls and WhatsApp messages from him as he tried to bridge divides and overcome obstacles to build consensus. I suspect many other delegations had similar experiences with him. Now, none of this is to suggest that he did not firmly stand up for the concerns of his own government. He did, and he did so with passion, but not as a bully. Always with reasoned discussion and fulsome explanations, he tried to build bridges and close divides. Frank Mora also showed a deep commitment to this Organization of American States. He was committed to its success and to its sustainability, and we saw many manifestations of that, including the compromises made over the budget about which we ourselves argued so fiercely and so fulsomely. And also we know that he himself used what influence he had on what he calls I think it was the third floor, or whatever floor it is that they go up to for these decisions in the State Department, but used whatever influence he could to ensure that the United States met over and above the contributions that were allocated by Congress. And that in itself is significant. So Frank Mora leaves us with our appreciation. But more than that, Mr. Chairman, Frank Mora leaves us with our respect and our thanks for the contribution he has made here. And these are words that I could not have left unspoken. So once again, Frank, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Sanders, for that eloquent statement. We now offer the floor to the Ambassador of Peru. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Señor Presidente, es un gran honor para mí, como coordinador del Grupo 10, despedir al embajador Frank Mora, representante permanente de los Estados Unidos ante la Organización de los Estados Americanos, OEA, con agradecimiento y sincero aprecio. Desde su llegada a la organización hace 2 años, el embajador Mora se comprometió profundamente con sus fines y objetivos, promoviendo iniciativas claves que han dejado huella. En el área de seguridad multidimensional, el embajador Mora lideró el abordaje de problemas de gran actualidad en la región, como la trata de personas y la delincuencia organizada transnacional. En el área de desarrollo integral, promovió los diálogos sobre competitividad de las Américas, MIPYMES y recientemente el lanzamiento del proyecto en inteligencia artificial. En el área de democracia, alentó la creación del Grupo Voluntario de Seguimiento a la Carta Democrática Interamericana, siendo luego su primer presidente. Sin duda, este grupo es uno de sus principales legados. Finalmente, en el área de derechos humanos, desplegó una incansable labor para promover el diálogo respetuoso con los Estados, en busca de lograr avances concretos en la protección de las poblaciones más vulnerables. Es importante reconocer también su liderazgo en el grupo de trabajo sobre Haití, del que fue presidente. Como tal, apoyó todas las iniciativas que contribuían a recuperar allí la paz y el camino hacia la prosperidad. Lo hasta aquí señalado solo pretende ser un breve y no exhaustivo resumen de las múltiples iniciativas y acciones que el embajador Frank Mora desarrolló en nuestra organización a lo largo de sus 2 años de gestión. Estimado embajador Mora, el Grupo 10 reconoce y valora el liderazgo institucional que usted ha desarrollado en estos años. Su carácter respetuoso y constructivo, estimulante del diálogo y su contagioso entusiasmo dejan huella entre nosotros. Los Estados Unidos de América han estado representados por usted en forma brillante. Usted deja un ejemplo para todos de que el espíritu correcto es el que construye en base al diálogo. Le expresamos nuestros mejores deseos para los proyectos que emprenden el futuro, en la seguridad de que su profesionalismo y sus dotes personales lo llevarán al éxito en cualquier tarea que se proponga emprender. Thank you very much, Frank. We will remember you with great affection.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Costa Rica. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente, distinguidos representantes permanentes, señor embajador Frank Mora, su distinguida familia que nos acompaña hoy. Llega uno de los temas más sensibles que tenemos en la agenda de este Consejo Permanente y es darle la despedida a nuestros queridos colegas al finalizar su periodo de nombramiento. Hoy es el turno de despedir a un colega cuyo trabajo deja una huella imborrable en esta organización y en la agenda regional. Despedimos al embajador Frank Mora, representante permanente de los Estados Unidos ante la OEA. Desde su llegada, el embajador Mora ha sido un acérrimo defensor de los pilares que sustentan esta organización: la democracia, los derechos humanos, la seguridad multidimensional y el desarrollo integral. Su liderazgo ha sido fundamental para avanzar en áreas críticas y abordar los desafíos hemisféricos con determinación y diálogo. Quisiera señalar que hace tan solo unos minutos antes del inicio de esta sesión tuvimos la oportunidad de participar en una ceremonia organizada para destacar el financiamiento de proyectos impulsados por Estados Unidos en el marco de la OEA, donde se presentó un inventario de los aportes que refleja una vez más el compromiso de Estados Unidos con la organización y con la cooperación multilateral. Este evento también destaca el liderazgo del embajador Mora en la implementación de proyectos concretos, como el firmado el viernes pasado con la CEDI en el marco del CIDI sobre el desarrollo de un marco de políticas de inteligencia artificial para las Américas. Durante su gestión, Estados Unidos de América contribuyó activamente al fortalecimiento de la Carta Democrática Interamericana con enfoques innovadores, lideró esfuerzos regionales para abordar la crisis en Haití, contribuyó significativamente a la seguridad hemisférica, promovió el diálogo inclusivo con la sociedad civil desde la presidencia del CISC, defendió la participación de la juventud, asegurando su voz en los espacios interamericanos como protagonistas del futuro democrático. Y por último, pero no menos importante, le brindó un gran apoyo al Fondo Leo Rowe, de cuya comisión rectora Costa Rica es miembro por mandato de este Consejo Permanente. Embajador Mora, como vemos en este simbólico inventario, que sin duda se me queda corto, su trabajo ha sido un ejemplo de liderazgo y fomento del diálogo. Nos deja un legado de cooperación efectiva y un compromiso inquebrantable con los valores democráticos que compartimos. Más allá de sus aportaciones diplomáticas y profesionales, me gustaría también destacar su carisma y el perfil académico que le caracteriza como destacado profesor universitario, algo que se ve reflejado en la minuciosa manera en que aborda cada tema en el Consejo Permanente, con su carpeta siempre muy bien organizada, y un detalle que no pasó desapercibido, en mi opinión, le convirtió más bien en el símbolo de su dedicación y profesionalismo. Lo extrañaremos en esta mesa, embajador, no solo por sus numerosos aportes al multilateralismo y a la búsqueda del consenso, sino también por su humanidad, su cordialidad y su amistad brindada con los brazos abiertos desde el primer momento. Le deseamos a usted, a su bella familia, a doña Ivette y a sus hijos que lo acompañan hoy en la sala, mucho éxito en todos los futuros proyectos que emprendan. Sepan que dejan muchos amigos en la OEA, en esta Casa de las Américas, y siempre los recordaremos con mucha gratitud. Como dice la bendición irlandesa, que el viento siempre sople a su favor, que el sol brille cálido sobre su rostro, que la lluvia caiga suave sobre sus campos, y hasta que nos volvamos a encontrar, que Dios los guarde en la palma de su mano. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Ambassador. I will now offer the floor to the delegation of Guatemala. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Buenas tardes, señor presidente, secretario general Luis Almagro, embajador de Estados Unidos Frank Mora, embajadores, delegados alternos, observadores permanentes. Hoy nos reunimos para despedir y expresar nuestro más sincero agradecimiento al embajador Frank Mora, quien se despide de su cargo como representante permanente de Estados Unidos ante la OEA. Su tenacidad, integridad y liderazgo han dejado una huella indeleble en nuestra organización, reflejando su profundo compromiso con los valores fundamentales que la sustentan. Durante su gestión, el embajador Mora ha liderado numerosas iniciativas en la Organización de Estados Americanos, enfocadas en diversidad de temas, como fortalecer la democracia, los derechos humanos y la sostenibilidad institucional. Asimismo, ha demostrado un firme compromiso con el desarrollo económico y social de nuestra región, destacándose en la promoción de programas que fomentan la inclusión social, el crecimiento económico sostenible y la difusión de la cultura de la región. Como muestra de su compromiso, el embajador Mora ha desempeñado roles claves en las principales comisiones y en diversos grupos. Resalta su participación como presidente de la Comisión de Cumbres y Sociedad Civil, incluyendo el seguimiento del proceso de cumbres y los resultados de la 9ª Cumbre de las Américas. Fue presidente del Grupo de Trabajo de Haití y también se desempeñó como presidente de la 7ª reunión en materia de trata, cuya presidencia fue traspasada a Guatemala. Fue clave su liderazgo en las Américas Competitive Exchange y la Red Interamericana de la Competitividad. Brindó atención a grupos en situación vulnerable como personas con discapacidad, los grupos de LGBT, afrodescendientes y otros. Mostró su apoyo a la libertad de prensa y colaboró con la Relatoría Especial de la Libertad de Expresión. En temas de democracia, sus contribuciones más notables incluyen el fortalecimiento de la Carta Democrática Interamericana a través de respaldar la creación del Grupo Voluntario de Seguimiento, la defensa de las elecciones libres en Venezuela, motivando sesiones del Consejo Permanente para discutir la situación de los derechos humanos y la democracia. Además, jugó un papel importante en la situación de Guatemala en 2023 en protección a los resultados electorales y la defensa de la democracia, incluyendo su participación en la visita del grupo de embajadores en enero de 2024. Embajador Mora, usted conoce de primera mano las consecuencias de cuando un país pierde el rumbo democrático y caiga en una dictadura, una ruta sin salida a la autocracia. por lo que desde su experiencia ha sido muy empático con quienes defienden la democracia y ha destacado su profunda solidaridad con los países que enfrentan retos significativos. Su excepcional labor en la OEA ha reflejado un compromiso firme con los principios democráticos, con el respeto a derechos humanos, la seguridad y el desarrollo integral. Su liderazgo atento y resolutivo ha sido clave en momentos críticos, apoyando iniciativas que fortalecen la paz y la estabilidad regional. Gracias a su dedicación y defensa incansable de la libertad, hemos logrado avances notables en la seguridad hemisférica y en el desarrollo económico-social de América Latina. Su labor deja un legado duradero que seguirá guiando nuestra cooperación y ofreciendo apoyo donde más se necesita. Ha sido un honor y un privilegio conocerle y compartir con usted en este espacio de la OEA, y siempre recordaremos su liderazgo. En su tiempo, dentro de la Organización de Estados Americanos, hemos tenido el privilegio de aprender de usted, de su compromiso para defender los valores y principios con los que se fundamenta la cooperación, y ha sido una guía para lograr acuerdos. Apreciamos profundamente su firme convicción en los principios democráticos y su esfuerzo incansable por contribuir a un futuro más prometedor para Guatemala y para todas las Américas. Quisiera recalcar el agradecimiento en nombre del pueblo de Guatemala por su incansable labor durante el proceso histórico que vivió nuestra nación el año pasado, en el cual sus gestiones fueron cruciales para lograr la transición democrática que culminó con la toma de posesión del presidente Bernardo Arévalo. Embajador Mora, al despedirse de este rol, sabemos que continuará apoyando con su valiosa experiencia en nuevas iniciativas y proyectos. Le deseamos el mayor de los éxitos en los caminos que emprenda. Estamos seguros de que su capacidad y su pasión por la diplomacia, la academia, la seguridad hemisférica y el desarrollo seguirán guiando, dejando una marca indeleble en cada una de las oportunidades que se le presenten. Sepa que en Guatemala tiene un país amigo, que lo apreciamos profundamente, que lo respetamos y esperamos seguirnos encontrando en el futuro, y esperamos que el futuro le depare muchos éxitos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Canada. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. De ma part et de la part de toute ma délégation, je tiens à exprimer notre sincère gratitude à l'ambassadeur Mora pour son leadership et sa collaboration au cours de son mandat de représentant permanent des États-Unis auprès de l'OEA. Le Canada est fier d'avoir travaillé aux côtés des États-Unis sous le leadership de l'ambassadeur Mora pour faire avancer et progresser la promotion des droits de la personne, la démocratie et l'inclusion dans notre hémisphère. Comme certains d'entre nous avons témoigné juste avant cette réunion dans la salle Miranda, Frank a mené, par exemple, il a donné l'exemple en allant chercher et mobiliser des forces diplomatiques, intellectuelles, techniques et financières pour faire avancer le travail de l'OEA. En tant que président par intérim du groupe de travail de l'OEA sur Haïti, l'ambassadeur Mora a mené la charge sur plusieurs résolutions clés pour l'appui d'une mission de sécurité parrainée par l'ONU en Haïti, ainsi que la coopération régionale et internationale en appui à nos amis haïtiens. Mr. Chair, Ambassador Mora has been a steadfast partner and ally on the promotion of gender equality and the rights of women and girls, including as coordinator of the Articulation for the Rights of Women and Girls and Gender Equality, as you mentioned, and co-hosting with Canada a workshop this past International Women's Day on building allyship to advance gender equality. We are grateful for his leadership and that of his team in the LGBTI+ core group for advancing and promoting the rights of LGBTI+ persons in the hemisphere. Through his innovative projects, such as the first ever celebration of Pride at the OAS, to various discussions he facilitated with CSOs and member states, he was able to highlight the ongoing discrimination against these people and that community, and highlight also the challenges to preserving hard-won rights here in the region. Ambassador Mora's work embodied his deep care and commitment to the success and longevity of the Organization of American States. He exercised great leadership, as noted by the distinguished representative of Antigua and Barbuda, in the last budget negotiations to help us all agree on a more rational real estate footprint that will ensure the OAS is more suitable, sustainable, and efficient in the future. Ambassador Mora's personal commitment to the goals of the OAS, his determination to make a positive impact, and his deep knowledge, respect, and appreciation for this region have made it all the more rewarding for my delegation to work with our American friends and colleagues on many, many other issues that I will not list here today, but could go on for a long time. Ambassador Mora's steadfast friendship and commitment to overcome the daunting challenges we all face have and will continue to inspire me, and I'm quite sure many others here in this room and amongst the delegations represented, to give the best of ourselves to realize the full potential of this great organization now and into the future. So, Frank, I'd like to say thank you and wish you all the best in the next phase of your already very distinguished and substantial career. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. I believe next should be the Bahamas? No? Okay, it's a mistake, yeah. So we offer the floor now to the delegation of the Dominican Republic. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente. Buenas tardes. La delegación dominicana se une al reconocimiento a la labor del embajador Francisco Mora con motivo de su despedida como representante permanente de los Estados Unidos ante esta organización. En su paso por la OEA, el embajador Mora se ha destacado por ser un defensor incansable de los principios fundamentales que guían nuestra organización, en particular los valores democráticos. Hemos sido testigos de su dedicación al fortalecimiento de los lazos de amistad y cooperación que unen a los países de la región con el suyo. Quisiera destacar en particular su incansable trabajo en promover el desarrollo económico y la construcción de instituciones democráticas efectivas, a través de la cooperación regional y fomentando espacios de diálogos constructivo. En su calidad de presidente del Grupo de Trabajo sobre la Carta Democrática Interamericana y del Grupo de Trabajo de Haití, su liderazgo ha sido fundamental en la promoción y defensa de los valores democráticos que todos compartimos. Como coordinador nacional de cumbres de Estados Unidos, desempeñó un papel crucial en la orientación y el impulso de importantes iniciativas para el desarrollo y la integración de la región. Extiendo un agradecimiento especial por el apoyo y la guía que usted, embajador Mora, ha ofrecido a las autoridades dominicanas al asumir la presidencia del proceso de cumbres de las Américas. Valoramos mucho la colaboración que nos ha ofrecido. Hoy, al despedirlo, le expresamos nuestro reconocimiento por su arduo trabajo, su compromiso constante con la paz, los derechos humanos y el afianzamiento de la democracia. Usted es un ejemplo de liderazgo y dedicación. Estamos seguros que desde donde se encuentre continuará aportando a hacer de nuestra región una más justa, equitativa y democrática. Le deseamos que el éxito lo acompañe siempre. Con su venia, señor presidente, aprovecho nuestra intervención para desear a los Estados miembros de este Consejo Permanente, al secretario general, a todos los amigos y amigas que hoy nos acompañan una feliz Navidad y que el 2025 nos mantenga unidos y en paz. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of El Salvador. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. La delegación de El Salvador desea expresar al embajador Francisco Mora, representante permanente de los Estados Unidos, nuestro agradecimiento por su aporte y labor a favor del fortalecimiento de nuestra organización en estos últimos 2 años. Desde enero de 2023, fecha en la que presentó sus cartas credenciales, el embajador Mora ha puesto a disposición todo su liderazgo, experiencia y capacidad al servicio de la organización y la comunidad de países que la integramos. En su gestión, sin hacer un detalle exhaustivo, ha promovido de manera incansable múltiples iniciativas de trabajo y cooperación a favor de la democracia, los derechos humanos, el desarrollo y la seguridad, reflejo de su compromiso y el de su país con la agenda interamericana. Todos hemos sido testigos del espíritu con el que ha impulsado los valores fundamentales de esta organización. No menos relevante ha sido su respaldo a la Biblioteca Colón y al Museo de Arte de las Américas, promoviendo variadas iniciativas culturales y académicas que cultivan la identidad de nuestros pueblos y estrechan los lazos diplomáticos de nuestros estados. Estimado embajador Mora, consideramos oportuno retomar lo expresado en su presentación de cartas credenciales en esta organización, cuando nos recordó que, abro comillas, en 1961 el presidente Kennedy destacó en su discurso ante el Consejo Permanente que es nuestra función y responsabilidad dar vida a esta organización, asegurar que cumpla su misión y no desviarnos continuamente con la creación de nuevas instituciones cuando tenemos una que ha madurado con el tiempo, cierro comillas. En esa oportunidad nos motivó también a que retomemos esa misión y el sueño de quienes creen que las personas del hemisferio deben estar estrechamente unidas para la consecución de sus valores y de una región de las Américas más pacífica y próspera. Apreciado embajador Mora, al despedirlo, reconocemos con certeza su compromiso por materializar esas palabras, mostrando en toda su faceta su gran habilidad diplomática para promover la paz y el consenso en nuestra región, acorde a los principios que defendemos. Desde la misión permanente de El Salvador, hemos apreciado su disposición al diálogo y su habilidad para tender puentes, incluso en los momentos más desafiantes. Sus colegas y amigos reconocemos en usted su gran calidad humana, por lo que deja una huella indeleble con su trabajo y esfuerzo. Usted ha representado no solo a su país, sino también los ideales compartidos que nos unen como región. Le auguramos muchos éxitos en sus nuevas funciones profesionales y familiares. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I will now offer the floor to the delegation of Mexico. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente. Mi delegación despide con afecto al embajador Francisco Mora, representante permanente de Estados Unidos, a quien reconocemos por su compromiso con el diálogo y el respeto mutuo, elementos fundamentales para el trabajo de esta organización y el desarrollo de un multilateralismo efectivo. México y Estados Unidos comparten no solo geografía, historia y una frontera de más de 3,000 kilómetros, sino también profundas relaciones humanas y económicas que fortalecen día a día la relación bilateral y que son muestra de los lazos amplios e indisolubles entre ambas naciones. Junto con Canadá, formamos una de las regiones económicas más importantes del mundo, que representa aproximadamente el 30% de la economía global. Embajador Mora, le deseamos el mayor de los éxitos en sus futuros proyectos y reiteramos nuestro compromiso de continuar fortaleciendo los vínculos entre nuestras naciones sobre la base de la confianza, el diálogo, el respeto mutuo y la responsabilidad compartida. Buena suerte, querido Frank. Ha sido muy positivo trabajar contigo de manera cercana, abierta y constructiva. Muy buena suerte. Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to Colombia. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente, y buenas tardes a todas, a todos. Señor embajador Francisco Mora, estimados representantes alternos y permanentes, señoras y señores, de verdad que es un honor en este momento poder tomar la palabra en este Consejo Permanente para rendir homenaje a un gran colega, un verdadero amigo de nuestra región y de Colombia, el embajador Francisco Mora, representante permanente de los Estados Unidos ante esta organización. De manera que hacemos un saludo muy especial a su familia, que nos honra con su presencia, la señora Ivette, y a sus hijos, que pueden sentirse absolutamente orgullosos de la persona que ha representado a los Estados Unidos ante esta organización en estos 2 años. Embajador Mora, su liderazgo y firme compromiso con los valores fundamentales de la democracia y con los derechos humanos ha dejado una huella imborrable en esta institución. Como dijo el poeta Machado, se hace camino al andar, y usted ha venido trazando una tremenda autopista con todo su trabajo. Reencontrar un académico, un gran investigador como lo ha sido usted siempre, a través de la universidad, de sus estudios sobre la América Latina, es algo que de verdad enorgullece a nuestra región. De manera que el trabajo que usted desarrolló, incluso desde cuando hicimos el retiro, en aquella oportunidad y verlo, la manera como usted trabajó, cómo se expresó, cómo puso el hombro todo el tiempo aportando su contingente a todas las necesidades que tenía la organización para engrandecerla, para hacerla más sólida, es algo que no se va a olvidar. Aprovecho la oportunidad para agradecerle en nombre del gobierno del presidente Gustavo Petro por su invaluable apoyo a nuestro país, especialmente a nuestros esfuerzos por la paz. Destaco su constante respaldo a las labores de la Misión de Apoyo al Proceso de Paz, la MAP-OEA. Quiero destacar ese respaldo que usted siempre tuvo a la declaración Respaldo a la Paz Total en Colombia y su activa participación en el foro titulado El rol de la OEA y la comunidad internacional en la construcción de paz en Colombia, donde reafirmó su compromiso con nuestra agenda de paz, esa que usted fue cimentando a través de todas las visitas que hizo a nuestro país en este breve periodo. Su apoyo ha sido fundamental para lograr avances en hitos como el aporte de la misión al informe final de la Comisión de la Verdad, el monitoreo de contextos de conflicto y conflictividad social, el acompañamiento en las mesas de diálogo de paz y en los espacios de conversación sociojurídica con grupos armados que adelanta el gobierno, la participación en los mecanismos de veeduría, monitoreo y verificación de los ceses al fuego bilateral y temporal que se han pactado. Y de igual manera quiero resaltar su trabajo como presidente del Grupo Voluntario de Seguimiento a la Carta Democrática. Todas las descripciones que aquí se han hecho quedan cortas, empezando por la que comparto absolutamente, como la que hizo el representante permanente de Antigua y Barbuda. Asimismo, le expresamos un profundo agradecimiento por el liderazgo demostrado en 2024 como coordinador del Grupo Núcleo LGBTIQ+, de la OEA, dando continuidad a un trabajo que iniciamos también en Colombia en 2023. Este esfuerzo que usted ha hecho ha sido fundamental para avanzar en la promoción y protección de los derechos de las personas diversas en la región. Destacamos especialmente el reciente lanzamiento de la Guía para Fuerzas de Seguridad, un instrumento clave para garantizar que el manejo de situaciones con personas LGBTIQ+, incorpore un enfoque diferencial y respete plenamente sus derechos y garantías. También recuerdo con orgullo la histórica recepción ofrecida en el Hall de las Américas, donde por primera vez en la historia el edificio de la OEA se iluminó con los colores del orgullo LGBTIQ+. Este acto simbólico fue una poderosa conmemoración sobre la riqueza y diversidad sexual y de género en nuestra región. Embajador, su capacidad para atender fuentes y fomentar consensos, como lo decía el representante de Antigua y Barbuda, nos ha recordado la diversidad de nuestra región como fuente de riqueza. Su disposición para escuchar y trabajar en equipo ha fortalecido el espíritu en esta organización. Hoy reconocemos no solo a un diplomático ejemplar, sino también a una persona de excelentes calidades humanas y un aliado incansable en la construcción de un hemisferio más justo, inclusivo y solidario. En nombre de Colombia, de mi delegación, le expresamos nuestra profunda gratitud y deseamos éxitos en los nuevos retos que emprenda. Estamos seguros que esto va a ser un hasta luego en el camino hacia nuevos encuentros. Va mi mano de hermano, Frank. Hasta pronto. Muchas gracias, presidente.
Thank you, Ambassador. Are we now for the floor to the delegation of Haiti? Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Monsieur le Président, Ambassadeur Mora et votre famille qui vous accompagne, dans notre noble profession nous sommes conscients qu'un jour viendra où il nous faudra dire au revoir des collègues. Pourtant, lorsque ce moment arrive, il n'en reste pas moins chargé d'émotions, particulièrement lorsque nous avons le privilège de collaborer avec des personnes dont l'engagement et le dévouement transcendent la simple fonction diplomatique. Ambassadeur Mora, chers collègues, vous faites partie de ces diplomates rares dont le travail laisse une empreinte indélébile. Vous avez accompli votre mission avec une rigueur exemplaire, une dignité admirable et un sens profond de la responsabilité. Vous avez représenté votre pays avec honneur et, à travers votre contribution inestimable, vous avez renforcé la crédibilité et la pertinence de notre organisation dans le système interaméricain. Ambassadeur Mora, cher ami, permettez-moi de souligner tout particulièrement votre rôle central et déterminant dans les travaux du groupe de travail de l'OEA sur Haïti. Sous votre leadership éclairé, nous avons pu avancer sur des dossiers sensibles et complexes, souvent marqués par des enjeux cruciaux pour l'avenir de mon pays. Votre engagement sans faille a permis de garantir la continuité des travaux du groupe, notamment après le départ de l'ambassadeur Spencer. Grâce à votre dévouement, vous avez assuré de facto la présidence des réunions et sous votre conduite, plusieurs résolutions significatives ont été adoptées. Je fais notamment référence à la résolution du 13 novembre dernier, par laquelle cette organisation a solennellement encouragé les Nations Unies à transformer la mission d'appui à la sécurité en Haïti en une mission de maintien de la paix. Votre travail a non seulement contribué à faire avancer les dossiers concernant Haïti, mais elle a également renforcé l'esprit de solidarité et de collaboration qui doit prévaloir au sein de cette organisation. En tant que vice-président du groupe de travail, vous avez su faire preuve d'une impartialité remarquable, tout en démontrant une compréhension profonde des défis auxquels Haïti fait face. Chers amis, vous êtes sans l'ombre d'un doute un grand ami d'Haïti. Votre engagement sincère et votre volonté de rechercher des solutions constructives resteront gravés dans la mémoire de ma délégation. Et je l'ose dire, de l'ensemble de cette Assemblée et de mon cher pays Haïti. L'excellence avec laquelle vous avez accompli votre travail ici continue à d'inspirer. Votre départ laisse un vide, mais également un héritage précieux, marqué par votre intégrité et votre leadership. Nous vous adressons nos vœux les plus sincères de succès dans vos nouvelles fonctions et espérons que nos chemins se croiseront à nouveau. Car, comme vous le savez, les amitiés forgées dans le cadre de cette organisation transcendent les frontières et le temps. Au revoir et à très bientôt. Hasta pronto, embajador.
Thank you, Ambassador. I will now offer the floor to the delegation of Panama. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente. Apreciado secretario general adjunto, colegas todos, distinguido amigo embajador Mora, su distinguida esposa y su familia. Saludos y respetos. Con la venia de la coordinación regional, deseo compartir unas palabras en nombre de la delegación de la República de Panamá para despedir al embajador Francisco Mora, representante permanente de los Estados Unidos ante la Organización de los Estados Americanos. Embajador Mora, aunque despedirnos siempre es un acto agridulce, no podríamos dejar pasar la oportunidad de reconocer su destacada labor en su paso por esta organización. Durante su gestión, fuimos testigos de su compromiso con los principios fundamentales de la OEA, reflejados en su incansable trabajo por fortalecer la democracia en nuestra región, promover los derechos humanos, contribuir con la seguridad multidimensional e impulsar la equidad mediante el desarrollo integral. La relación histórica y estrecha entre Panamá y los Estados Unidos quedó reflejado en los numerosos esfuerzos conjuntos que llevamos a cabo en temas como la igualdad de género, el desarrollo del America's Competitive Exchange en Panamá a inicios de este año y esfuerzos por fortalecer los sistemas democráticos de nuestra región, como la creación del Grupo Voluntario de Seguimiento a la Carta Democrática Interamericana, quien contó con usted como primer presidente liderando las discusiones y los esfuerzos de una iniciativa que busca colaborar en el ámbito democrático en beneficio de nuestros pueblos. Embajador Mora, su experiencia, profesionalismo y liderazgo fueron piezas claves en el sobresaliente trabajo realizado por usted y su delegación durante estos 2 años. Ha representado con honor y compromiso los valores e intereses de su nación. Además, hemos encontrado en usted, embajador, las habilidades de un gran diplomático, firmeza en sus posiciones, pero a la vez accesibilidad para mantener un diálogo cercano que permita alcanzar acuerdos. Quiero también destacar su calidez humana y su amabilidad, no solo con los representantes permanentes, sino con los equipos de trabajo de todas las misiones. Deseo finalizar reconociendo en nombre de toda la delegación de Panamá, del presidente de la República, José Raúl Mulino, y del canciller Javier Martínez Hacha, su dedicación y colaboración. Le deseamos éxitos con los nuevos caminos que emprenda y le recordamos que en Panamá siempre encontrará las puertas abiertas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Jamaica. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Jamaican delegation and my ambassador, it is both an honor and a pleasure to pay tribute to Ambassador Francisco Mora, an outstanding educator, the consummate diplomat, and public servant. He's a man for all seasons. His astute leadership in different committees at the OAS, underpinned by the 4 pillars of the OAS, the Summit of the Americas process, and more recently, the 9th Summit of the Americas, which resulted in the adoption of 4 political declarations: digital transformation, health, climate, energy, and democracy, critical areas aimed at building back more resilient in a post-unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic period. Ambassador Moore is well accomplished. Notwithstanding his accomplishments, which are too many to mention here this afternoon, it is personal attributes and dedication to serving his country which will leave a lasting impact. He is humble, has a congenial personality, and has the ability to remain calm during passionate exchanges, which promotes professionalism and meaningful exchanges and make it easy to work with him. These qualities is so much easier for us at the OAS and makes it much easier for us to arrive at a consensus while respecting our differences of positions. We will recall the meeting he had with different groups and delegations just before the convening of the 55th special regular session of the General Assembly to approve the 2025 budget, and that different delegations had contending views. During the meeting, Ambassador Moore exemplified leadership where we had frank and open discussions, no pun intended with the word frank. Those meetings helped us to have an even deeper understanding of the proposals for the real estate portfolio of the organization, among others. His representation of the United States is exemplary, and his presence at the OAS will be missed. I, however, remain optimistic that our paths will continue to cross. Let me take this opportunity on behalf of the Jamaican delegation to state how grateful we are to have worked with you, and please accept our best wishes for your personal and professional well-being and every success in your future endeavors. I thank you.
Thank you. We now offer the floor to the delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, ambassadors, permanent observers, alternate representatives, and staff of the OAS General Secretariat, and other guests who are here and looking at this meeting online. Good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, Please permit my delegation to join in wishing a farewell to His Excellency Francisco Omora, Ambassador, Permanent Representative of the United States. Mr. Chairman, a lot has been said about this distinguished son of the Americas. St. Vincent and the Grenadines will not repeat what numerous delegations have already said. However, St. Vincent and the Grenadines wishes you, Ambassador Mora, the very best in your future endeavors. Ambassador Gilchrist, who is out of state, sends her regards. Ambassador Mora, it was a pleasure working with you over the years. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is grateful for the cooperation you provided to the Lero Fund under your leadership. Ambassador, a very important point must be made that it was because of your push or your leadership which led to the contract to A&M, which resulted in this report for a comprehensive review of this organization. So kudos to you, Ambassador. Ambassador, my delegation appreciates the constructive engagements you've had during your tour of duty with the CARICOM group. I personally bear witness to that and do appreciate the constructive engagement you've had with not just St. Vincent and the Grenadines delegation, but with all CARICOM delegations. Mr. Chairman, in diplomacy, welcomes and farewells are the norm. However, for us as humans, it is always difficult to say goodbye. Ambassador Mora, we may be saying farewell to you today, but hopefully we will meet again. Also, in diplomacy, it is a small world and a revolving door. Bon voyage, Ambassador Mora. God bless, and take a bow, sir, because you certainly represented the United States very well, and you should be proud of that. Farewell, Mr. Ambassador, and I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Honduras. You have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Estimado embajador Mora, la misión permanente de Honduras hoy se suma a las sentidas y afectuosas palabras expresadas por las delegaciones que me han antecedido. El embajador Roberto Quesada en este momento se encuentra en un viaje de trabajo en Honduras. No obstante, me ha instruido personalmente expresarle que lamenta profundamente no poder acompañarle en esta despedida, pero le envía un saludo fraterno y sus mejores deseos en este ciclo que hoy cierra. Asimismo, manifiesta su reconocimiento y agradecimiento por su valiosa colaboración y compromiso en la promoción de los principios que compartimos dentro de la OEA. Le deseamos muchos éxitos en sus futuros esfuerzos y quedamos a su disposición para seguir colaborando estrechamente. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Grenada. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, Mr. Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, Excellencies, the Permanent Mission of Grenada takes the floor to join others in recognizing Ambassador Mora for his service and contributions in representing the United States at the Organization of American States. Over his tenure, Ambassador Mora has demonstrated exceptional qualities as an astute diplomat, an exemplary leader, leaving his mark on this organization. One of the hallmarks of Ambassador Mora's tenure has been his approachability and willingness to share his insights. Our delegation is fortunate to sit next to the Permanent Mission of the United States, and we can personally attest to the warmth and collegiality he brings to every interaction. Ambassador Mora has represented his country with distinction, championing the principles that underpin the OAS, principles of democracy, human rights, development, and security. His diplomatic acumen is evident in his ability to navigate complex issues with clarity and a collaborative spirit. Under his representation, the United States has played a pivotal role in advancing key initiatives and fostering consensus on challenging matters. Ambassador Mora's interventions and discussions have been marked by depth and a genuine commitment to dialogue. Ambassador Mora's leadership as chair of the voluntary group for follow-up to the Inter-American Democratic Charter is an example of his dedication to the core values of this institution. In this capacity, he has provided clear direction and fostered meaningful discussion on the state of democracy in our region, encouraging transparency, accountability, and collective action. Ambassador Mora, as you prepare to embark on the next chapter of your journey, we extend our best wishes for your future endeavors. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I will now offer the floor to the delegation of Bahamas. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, all. Greetings and warm welcome to Mrs. Moore and the family of Ambassador Frank Moore. I had to run the risk of speaking at the tail end of all of these remarks, and hearing the culmination of these great orators, I am now feeling compelled to nominate you for the Nobel Prize. On behalf of the Bahamas and the permanent mission of the Bahamas to the Organization of American States, it is a great honor to extend our sincere gratitude to Ambassador Professor Francisco Mora as he concludes his tenure as the representative of the United States to the OAS. Ambassador Mora's leadership, insight, and unwavering commitment to the principles of democracy, human rights, and multilateralism have left a lasting impact on this institution. His diplomatic acumen and ability to foster dialogue during critical moments have been instrumental in advancing our shared goals for the hemisphere. Throughout his tenure, Ambassador Mora demonstrated a deep appreciation for the unique perspectives of small states, ensuring that our voices were not only heard, but valued. His role in stewardship of the Haiti Working Group is emblematic of navigating geopolitical and institutional terrain that is not built for the weak in heart, nor the weak in spirit. Ambassador Mora has always taken thoughtful approach to consensus building, and his respect for the diversity of views among member states have set a high standard for diplomatic engagement at the OAS. Frank, as you embark on your next chapter, we recognize and commend your legacy of service and your dedication to the ideals of the inter-American system. We thank you for your steadfast support and your patience, particularly in the heat of the debate. You've always remained unfazed and unwavering. Frank, for your presence will be missed, but your contributions shall endure. I have surety, more surety than others in this room, that we will meet again, because, Frank, you will undoubtedly leave the rigors and stress of these halls for the tranquil and serenity of the beaches in Harbor Island in the Bahamas. We will miss you, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. Secretary General Almagro, Assistant Secretary General Mendez. I recognize Ambassador Mora and his dear family, and he will be visiting St. Kitts, as we will be finding out. It has been a privilege to witness and work alongside you, Ambassador Mora, during your tenure as permanent representative of the United States to the Organization of American States. Your calm and steady manner, paired with your pleasant demeanor and unwavering professionalism, leave an indelible mark on all who have had the honor of engaging with you. This delegation of St. Kitts and Nevis fondly recalls your promise to visit our islands. I'm very happy that your wife and your family are here to hear this, just in case they were unaware. And I assure you that the break you so richly deserve awaits you on our tranquil and calming shores. There you will find not only rest and beauty, but also a warm welcome befitting a friend. On behalf of the government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis, I commend you for the invaluable contributions you have made to strengthening the bridges between our countries and for your unwavering commitment to fostering cooperation around the hemispheric table. Your legacy of service and dedication will continue to inspire us all. The delegation of St. Kitts and Nevis wishes you every success in your future endeavors, both personally and professionally, and we trust that this next chapter will be as fulfilling as it is well-deserved. Ambassador, I hope that our paths will cross again sometime soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. I will now offer the floor to the delegation of Suriname. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be very brief because a lot have been said, but the OAS is made up of member states, but these member states are represented by human beings. And I just want to thank Frank for being a wonderful professional and a warm personality. And I think that the OAS, we all have benefited from that. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Ambassador. I would now like to offer the floor to the Permanent Observer Mission of Spain. Ambassador, please proceed.
Gracias. Querido embajador Mora, querido Fran, ha llegado el momento de la despedida y el embajador de Colombia recordaba a Antonio Machado, poeta español que murió en el exilio por la dictadura franquista que padeció España. Y me viene a la mente también un verso suyo de todo pasa y todo queda. Todo pasa, aunque sabemos desde el momento que aceptamos el cargo que nuestra estancia en la organización no es perenne y es parte del multilateralismo, la rotación de responsables en las diferentes representaciones, hoy es un día en el que, como se ha visto, hay cierta pesadumbre en el ambiente. Y es que el embajador Mora deja huella y un buen recuerdo. Querido embajador, su país puede estar orgulloso del tiempo que ha estado al frente del equipo de la misión de Estados Unidos ante la OEA. Igualmente puede estar orgullosa su familia, presente en la sala, que le ha acompañado durante el desempeño de esta responsabilidad, porque sin la familia es más difícil. Y tú, embajador Mora, Fran, puedes estar satisfecho de todo lo conseguido y, volviendo al verso de Machado, puedes estar orgulloso de todo lo que queda. Hace apenas unos minutos estábamos reunidos en el Salón Miranda para hacer un sucinto repaso de las acciones de la misión de Estados Unidos ha impulsado durante el tiempo en el que ha desempeñado la responsabilidad de embajador permanente ante la OEA. Ha sido mucho trabajo. Trabajo en la defensa de la democracia, de los derechos humanos y la paz, de los derechos de las mujeres, de los derechos LGTBIQ+, de los derechos de los más vulnerables. Trabajo hecho con solvencia y con diálogo, cualidades muy apreciadas, ya que contribuyen a que el multilateralismo sea útil. Y en lo personal, quiero agradecerle la cercanía, la amistad y la calidez como ser humano y desearte a ti y a tu familia la mejor de las suertes en el futuro. Gracias.
Thank you, Ambassador. So now we offer the floor to the Permanent Observer Mission of France. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup. Monsieur le Président, je ne pouvais pas ne pas m'associer à ces messages de remerciement à Franck Mora, avec qui malheureusement je n'ai eu le plaisir de travailler que quelques mois. Mais je voudrais vraiment lui dire combien j'ai apprécié son accueil chaleureux, les échanges ouverts avec ma délégation, pourtant uniquement observatrice permanente. Donc merci beaucoup. Et donc, de la part de la mission française à l'OEA, je vous souhaite le meilleur pour la suite, à vous, à votre famille, et peut-être qu'après les Bahamas et Saint Kitts et Nevis, vous passerez par Paris. Qui sait? Bonne continuation.
Thank you, Ambassador. It's now my pleasure to offer the floor to the Secretary General. Excellency, you have the floor.
Gracias, presidente. Apreciado Frank, querido amigo, para vos y tu familia aquí presente, verdaderamente es un momento muy particular de nuestro trabajo tener que despedirte. Cuando presentaste cartas credenciales hace un par de años, mencionaste el compromiso del presidente Joe Biden de fortalecer el multilateralismo, en especial el papel que juega la OEA y el sistema interamericano en las Américas. Lo hiciste como un profesional convencido, actuando con absoluto dinamismo y capacidad de gestión, pero también en la dimensión personal que muchos han mencionado en el día de hoy. Nos conocemos desde hace un rato. Era canciller, estabas en el Departamento de Defensa, luego te conocía en la FIU, y luego acá donde te hiciste esperar un tiempo. Pero como todas las cosas que nos hacen esperar resultan muy buenas. En estos 24 meses diste muestras de una gran capacidad diplomática, una enorme capacidad de diálogo. Es siempre, en todas estas instancias que he mencionado, ha sido siempre un gran placer trabajar contigo. En primer lugar, porque siempre obteníamos un resultado concreto, específico, algo que servía a la gente, algo que servía a las instituciones, algo que hacía la situación mejor en cualquier parte del hemisferio y para las personas y comunidades del hemisferio. En segundo lugar, porque, y esto no es fácil en la diplomacia, el ego, cuando uno trabaja contigo, queda de lado. Vos lo dejás de lado y entonces haces que prácticamente todos lo dejemos de lado cuando estemos contigo. Y esa es, de esa perspectiva de humildad, definitivamente una gran posibilidad de hacer y obtener mejores cosas, mejores resultados. Después la coherencia con los principios, el hecho de ser una persona con una enorme capacidad de diálogo no te hace abdicar de ningún principio ni de ninguno de estos valores con los que estamos comprometidos en la organización, que forman parte del esqueleto, de los cimientos de esta organización. Después tu enorme capacidad de acción, o sea, todo tiene que ser llevado a la acción, o sea, siempre que empiezo a conversar contigo sobre algún tema, sé que me espera acción, sé que voy a tener que hacer algo más después, no va a quedar la conversación. Voy a tener que ir a algún lado, voy a tener que resolver algún tema, voy a tener que resolver alguna cosa, hacer específicamente. Esto verdaderamente ha hecho una gran diferencia en los trabajos, en los momentos más complejos, en las negociaciones más complejas, las distintas posiciones, tu condición humana tuvo la capacidad de resolver. Y el hecho de permear amistad con todos, con todas, verdaderamente ha sido una de las cosas diferenciales en esta organización. Has desarrollado una enorme cantidad de tareas. Yo miraba los dos discursos hoy, el del Salón Miranda y el de acá, y eran intercambiables. O sea, podía confundirme y agarrar uno allá y podía confundirme y agarrar el que leían en el Salón Miranda acá. Porque verdaderamente está asignado por los resultados que has logrado en tu gestión. La defensa y la promoción de la democracia, de los derechos humanos. Conoces por tus ancestros lo que significan las dictaduras y cómo duelen. Y de ahí la firmeza que has tenido siempre al respecto. Los trabajos han sido mencionados aquí en múltiples transiciones, misiones de observación electoral, negociaciones, misiones de buenos oficios, nuevas misiones de observación. Y hay otra cosa que también distingue toda esa capacidad de acción, y es está basada en el conocimiento. sos académico. Y a veces cuesta trasladar el mundo académico a la acción y a veces cuesta trasladar la acción del funcionario público al mundo académico. Contigo logra una prácticamente perfecta simbiosis y eso es algo también muy particular. Cómo combinás los elementos ahí adentro, en esa frente extendida que parece como una plaza de la inteligencia, verdaderamente lo sabes hacer de una manera espectacularmente notable. Gracias por tu apoyo a todas las misiones y todos. Querido Frank, los conocedores del béisbol saben que la función del catcher en un equipo requiere de una persona reflexiva, con gran temperamento, pero a la vez con un gran equilibrio personal y con enorme capacidad de liderazgo. Es prácticamente la persona que, y esto es obviamente conocimiento básico, es la persona que le marca los lanzamientos al pitcher, es la persona que, el único del equipo que ve todo el campo y lo ve de frente, una posición diferente. Por eso muchos managers de las grandes ligas han sido catchers y vos has sido acá un extraordinario manager. En todo eso, y uno, sabiendo que nos hemos encontrado tantas veces antes, durante tanto tiempo, estoy seguro que nos volveremos a encontrar en el futuro. Gracias, Frank.
Thank you, Excellency. Colleagues, before I offer the floor to Ambassador Mora, I am obliged to also recognize and welcome his wife, Yvette, and his family who are here today. And I'm sure they're very proud to hear how much we respect, admire Frank. And I think they're very excited to know that Frank will be embarking on a tour of all the Americas. And I hear even France, but yeah, we are looking forward to that tour, Frank. So with that, I'll offer the floor to Ambassador Mora. Frank, please proceed.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, and to colleagues and of course, all friends. Needless to say, I'm beyond moved and grateful for the much too generous comments that you have made this afternoon. But more importantly, I'm grateful for your friendships, your leadership, and commitment to this organization. I have learned and benefited greatly from all of you during my brief time as U.S. Permanent Representative. Colleagues, as you know, and as Ambassador Sanders noted, I'm not a career diplomat. At times I have used that as an excuse to be undiplomatic. But I mention this fact for a larger reason as well. Unlike most of you, I have not spent much time in public service, stayed in the Pentagon and of course here, working for my government, working on the inside of the system. I am first and foremost an academic, someone who has spent most of my career looking in from outside, a student of the inter-American system, a critical observer rather than a direct participant. My years studying and analyzing the history and politics of our hemisphere filled me with the conviction that this institution, the Organization of American States, plays an important role in our hemisphere. It is because of that conviction that I was interested in serving in this position in the first place. And I take a moment here to express my deep gratefulness to President Biden for giving me this honor to serve in this capacity. My 2 years in this chair have only strengthened that conviction. Today, I would say not only does this institution play an important role, but an essential role, indeed an indispensable role, if nations of this hemisphere are to fulfill our aspirations. In fact, I would go as far as to say that this organization is more important now, today, than it has been in decades, precisely because of the challenges the hemisphere faces. And I will go further, that the OAS must not only exist, it must grow stronger, become more effective, more active, more creative. If democracy, development, security, and the promotion of human rights are to prevail in our hemisphere for the rest of this century. These four pillars, democracy, development, security, and human rights, are not just the organizational structure of this organization. They are the values that we, the member states, bring to this organization, and they are the foundation of a stable, just, and inclusive hemisphere. And this is true not just for the people of our countries, but also for the people of Cuba and the people of Nicaragua and of Venezuela, even though they do not have a representative sitting in this room today. Yet we know that these principles require constant effort to uphold. They must be defended, strengthened, and expanded every day through our shared commitment and collective action. It is only through this joint effort that we can address the complex challenges and seek the opportunities of today. I regret that I've only had 2 years to be a direct participant in the Inter-American system, but in these 2 years, we, all of us, have accomplished a great deal. Colleagues, the public often talks about what we here in the Permanent Council do or don't do. But as you know, the real work this organization and of the Inter-American system gets done in the Secretariat and at semi-autonomous entities of the system by an incredible collection of professionals that we should all be proud and grateful for their extraordinary work they do day in and day out, at times in very challenging circumstances, on behalf of the peoples of the Americas. It has been an honor to work with all of you in the Secretariat. Colleagues, we must not only continue, in fact, I think we should continue to expand our financial and our political support, but also think about how we become advocates and hemispheric promoters of the work that this organization does. Colleagues, as you know, the region faces multiple complex challenges that we have discussed many times in this forum, such as climate change, citizen security, and the threat from organized crime and corruption, high levels of inequality and poverty, and the social marginalization of undeserved communities. But in my mind, if we do not recommit to our common value of staying true to democracy, to human rights, and the rule of law, these other challenges will be much more difficult to address. Without democracy, development, the environment, and security become that much harder to address. And of course, vice versa. If we are not up to the task of demonstrating to our increasingly distrustful and disaffected citizenry that democracy can deliver, then we will be caught in a vicious cycle that with time becomes increasingly difficult to pull out from. But colleagues, we have the tools here at the OAS, and hopefully the political will to help restore faith in our democratic institutions. The will, the shared commitment to push us toward a virtuous circle characterized by a more secure, peaceful, and prosperous Americas. Don't let the incredible work we did in Guatemala be the exception, but rather the rule in our collective effort to defend democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. This is our responsibility. Let me take a minute, Mr. Chair, during this discussion of democracy. I'd like to thank Secretary General Almagro, whose leadership has left an indelible mark on this organization and on our hemisphere. Secretary General, your principal defense of human rights and of democracy especially in the face of authoritarian regimes in Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba, has ensured that the OAS remains a steadfast advocate for those whose voices are too often silenced. Your vision of more rights for more people has brought to life through initiatives like the Secretary for Access to Rights and Equity, which has expanded the organization's capacity to address the needs of marginalized communities across the Americas. Your efforts to engage the Venice Commission on critical issues such as presidential re-election and the electoral framework in Haiti have also reinforced the OAS's role as a guardian of democratic norms and the rule of law. Thank you, sir, for your dedication and your vision, which will continue to inform the inter-American system and the people it serves. It has been said by all of you, most of you, in talking about the voluntary group for the follow-up of the Inter-American Democratic Charter. That grew of our, I think, great respect for the Inter-American Democratic Charter, but also my belief that challenges to democracy in the hemisphere remained and have evolved since our predecessors negotiated and signed that charter 24 years ago. If we are to promote and defend democracy in the Americas, as the charter calls us to do, then our approaches and our actions must evolve as well. The voluntary group provides a vital platform for member states to engage in proactive dialogue and collaboration to counter democratic erosion. Now, under the very capable leadership of our colleague from Chile, the group is generating and promoting a variety of ways to strengthen and develop the capabilities of this organization for the benefit of civic and democratic institutions in our countries. And I encourage you all to continue this work. When we first began discussing the establishment of the group to strengthen the Inter-American Democratic Charter, I said that the U.S. insisted, not from some altruistic reason or effort to impose. In fact, it was motivated by self-interest. Democracies are fragile everywhere, including in my own country. If democracy is ever threatened in the U.S., my hope is that this organization, as it has done many times before in other countries, use the tools like the Inter-American Democratic Charter in defense of democracy and the rule of law. I was also pleased to participate in the excellent work of CD and SETI as they work tirelessly to address the development challenges of the region. I've had the opportunity of seeing firsthand how impactful the work of the OAS is, with economic development efforts that go from setting the Inter-American Climate Change Action Plan for 2023-2030 to implementation of programs and initiatives with a proven record of facilitating linkages and fostering economic partnerships and development such as the America Competitiveness Exchange, and the deployment in the region of the Small Business Development Centers model. Through my roles as chair of the LGBTI+ core group and the coordinator of the Gender Articulation Group, I saw how inclusion and equity can and must strengthen the foundations of democracy. Initiatives such as the first ever OAS Pride celebration and resolutions to enhance women's participation in decision-making highlight the OAS's ability to lead by example in ensuring that no one is left behind. And now a word, my friends, about the budget. We have also, in my 2 years here, worked to strengthen this institution financially. By increasing its budget, yes, but also by making difficult decisions, take on structural and organizational reforms that will put the organization on a sustainable path for the future. Much of this work remains. I urge you all not to consider not only to consider the external review or the budget resolution that we passed, not as a starting point or not as an end point, but from the very beginning. I truly believe we are at a critical point where we're facing, yes, some political headwinds, but I would argue we have significant opportunities, a window, if you will, to double down on multilateral diplomacy at international institutions by committing ourselves to the process of reform. And as importantly, telling and showing the people of the hemisphere that without a strong and vibrant OAS, we would be much worse for it. Well, I cannot continue this work with you as a direct participant. You can bet that I will be paying close attention as I return to my role as an outside observer academic. Now, a few words of thanks. As with all of you, nothing would have been possible without the love and patience of our family. I'm joined today by my wife, Yvette, and my children, Daniela and Frankie. Their unwavering support and inspiration propelled all of my efforts here to do the very best in contributing, however small, to making our hemisphere more peaceful and just for them and for all our families. A good friend once told me, uno predica por su ejemplo. You preach by your example. I hope I have done that. To the U.S. OAS team, it has been a pleasure and the honor of my life to serve with you. Thank you all for every day of service that you have done to our country, the OAS, and the hemisphere. I will be forever grateful to this team, led by the Deputy Permanent Representative, Thomas Hastings, an exceptional diplomat and leader from whom I learned so much, as I did from the rest of the team. Thank you all so much. I will definitely miss you. Chair, I'd like to take a moment to recognize and thank the many OAS staff members whose work often goes unseen, but is essential to what we accomplish here day in and day out. From the translators and the interpreters, who bridge your linguistic divides, to the conference support, press, and protocol teams who make our gathering possible. Your professionalism, your commitment ensures that we can manage meaningfully and effectively the important work that we do here. You make this organization run, and I am profoundly grateful to all of you. Special thanks to Assistant Secretary General Nestor Mendez and his team for making sure that we stay within our bounds, but at the same time reach for as ambitious programs and organization that we can. Nestor, thank you so much. As Jimmy Carter, a lifelong advocate and who I have cited often in my remarks, has said, and I quote, "The bond of our common humanity is stronger than the divisiveness of our fears and prejudices. This institution's strength lies in its ability to bring us together, even in times of division and even of polarization, to address our shared challenges and to pursue our common goals. As I have been reminded, while our titles may include permanent representative, none of us are truly permanent. I leave with the confidence that the OAS will continue to rise to the challenges before it, guided by the commitment of its member states and the resilience of its people. Thank you very, very much.
Ambassador, thank you so much for those profound and inspiring words. On behalf of the OAS, I think it's going to be truly my honor to present you with a token of our appreciation. And so I invite you to come up and allow me that honor.
Paramos acá arriba de la mesa.
Colleagues, we will now move to the last item on our agenda, which is other business. And I see we have a request for the floor from Costa Rica. And so I offer the floor to the Ambassador of Costa Rica. Ambassador, please proceed.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Mi delegación toma la palabra en el marco de la conmemoración del Día Internacional del Migrante, que se conmemora cada 18 de diciembre. Costa Rica, en su calidad de presidenta de la Comisión de Asuntos Migratorios del CIDI, se une al llamado internacional para reconocer y promover los derechos de todas las personas en movilidad humana. En un mundo interconectado donde los movimientos migratorios mixtos son una realidad que trasciende fronteras, es esencial recordar que cada persona migrante es un ser humano digno de respeto y de protección. Costa Rica, comprometida con el respeto de los derechos humanos, así como de los principios de inclusión y solidaridad, continuará trabajando tanto a nivel regional como internacional para garantizar que los derechos humanos de las personas en movilidad humana sean respetados y protegidos sin importar su origen o su estatus. Esta conmemoración nos invita a reflexionar sobre los desafíos que enfrentan las personas en movilidad humana y también sobre las valiosas contribuciones y sus valiosos aportes. Por ello, reafirmamos nuestro compromiso con el fortalecimiento de políticas migratorias que promuevan la integración, la equidad y el acceso a una vida digna para todos, así como de la gestión más humana y articulada de los procesos y mecanismos migratorios en beneficio de todos, incluidas las comunidades de origen, tránsito, destino y retorno. Muchas gracias. Señor presidente, si me lo permite, antes de entregarle el uso de la palabra y de cederlo, quisiera aprovechar también que esta es la última sesión del Consejo Permanente del año, especialmente presidida por usted, así que también quisiera aprovechar este momento para manifestarle todo nuestro agradecimiento por el trabajo brindado, cumplió con creces lo prometido en su plan de trabajo, lo felicito y también felicitamos a su gran equipo en la misión permanente de Belice ante la OEA y, bueno, un ejemplo grande de multitasking y de capacidad para ustedes. También felicito a todos los funcionarios de la Secretaría que lo han acompañado en el ejercicio de esta importante labor durante el trimestre. Y me uno a las palabras de la embajadora también, Mayerlin Cordero, de la República Dominicana, para desearles a todos una feliz Navidad, que disfruten esta etapa llena de paz, alegría con sus seres queridos y espero que el próximo año nos encuentre con una renovada energía y una voluntad para seguir trabajando juntos y fortaleciendo nuestro hemisferio. Muchas gracias, presidente.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Colleagues, I see no further requests for the floor. And so, as we conclude this final regular meeting of the year and my tenure as chair of the Permanent Council, Allow me a few moments to reflect on our collective achievements and also to express my deepest gratitude for all of your cooperation and support. From October 1st to today, we have addressed some of the most pressing challenges facing our hemisphere with a clear focus on human rights, democracy, hemispheric security, international law, and regional solidarity. I think a key milestone has been the preparation for the special session of the General Assembly to approve the program budget for 2025, which, as Ambassador Mora rightly said, has ensured that the OAS remains equipped with the necessary resources to fulfill its role in effectively addressing the region's needs. And this achievement is due in large part to the hard work of the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs, CAAP, whose contributions were indispensable, and for that we thank Ambassador Neymar, especially for the hard work in delivering on that. Thank you. In some ways, I often get congratulated for the work that is done, and I try to explain that many times I just stand at the wheel and look good. There are people that's really doing the work, such as Ambassador Neymar and others, who I want to thank today. Because we also prepared and approved the Permanent Council resolution for the upcoming elections of the Secretary General and Assistant Secretary General, ensuring a transparent process in choosing the leaders of the OAS for the next 5 years. Another central focus, and again we thank Ambassador Mora for leading on this, was our attention to the crisis in Haiti, which continues, but we continue to reaffirm our commitment to the international community's engagement to restore peace and stability in Haiti. And of course, we endorsed Haiti's request for a UN peacekeeping operation and highlighted the importance of strengthening democratic institutions and human rights protections in that country. In addition, we commemorated significant milestones in the Inter-American human rights system and observed International Human Rights Day, reaffirming our commitment to protecting the civil, political, and economic rights of all individuals. Even as we hear today, Canada brought forward a special set for our LGBTI community. So we continue to pay special attention to all the vulnerable groups. We've also made good progress in addressing racial and gender-based inequalities through resolutions on Afro-descendants and efforts to combat gender-based violence, resolutions on the indigenous peoples of the America. All this, we've taken important steps towards ensuring social inclusion and equal rights for all. Climate change is an important topic for us, especially the impact of rising sea levels on coastal nations. And it is clear that international cooperation continues to be critical to address this environmental and the social consequences faced by the most vulnerable communities. So, as I conclude as the chair, again, I thank you for your dedication, commitment, and collaboration. And it has been truly an honor to serve as the chair of this Permanent Council. I'm confident that the OAS will continue to advance the causes of peace, democracy, hemispheric security, and human rights in the Americas. On a personal note, I've learned a lot from sitting in this chair and listening to Ambassador Mora's farewell statement gives us that satisfaction, that assurance that because of the work of people like you in the OAS, the Americas will continue to be a zone of peace. And yes, we have lots of challenges, but my experience tackling difficult issues show that diplomacy, the willingness to engage and discuss is the way to go. And we are very, very, very excited about the future despite the challenges. I also extend my gratitude to the permanent observers. Your valuable participation at the recent dialogue between member states and observers have strengthened our collective resolve to tackle the challenges facing our region with your support. Thank you. Of Of course, I really thank the Secretary General and the Assistant Secretary General. I thank him especially for his unwavering support, but perhaps what I need to thank him most for is that he gave up his assistant to be my deputy chief of mission, Ms. Simón, and so I really want to thank my mission also, because the work that they did again allowed me to stand at the wheel and look good because of all that they've done. So thanks also to the staff of the Secretariat. My deepest gratitude. Under the leadership of Ambassador Mendes, the team has given me tireless support and experienced guidance, which was needed to be successful in a position like this. And I know the next ambassador from Bolivia will find that he has a very competent staff here, especially also our legal representatives, very good advice. And I know sometimes, as with all lawyers, you don't like the advice you get, but they make an effort to give the right advice. As I remember once, we had several difficult issues, but one particular difficult issue we were dealing with, and Carmen asked me, so what do you want to do? And I said, listen, we got to just do the right thing for the right reason, and then what happens, happens. And that, I think, is the way that we deal with difficult issues, and it works out. So finally, I want to wish everyone and your families a joyful and peaceful holiday season. May 2025 bring renewed hope, prosperity, and peace to our hemisphere, and that the OAS continues to strengthen, and as a sign of trust in the future work of our organization. Thank you again. I look forward to great achievements we will continue to accomplish in years ahead. And I'm not a good singer, but it's for the singers among us. Maybe you can lead us with, we wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. No singers? Okay, fine. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Colleagues, thanks. This meeting is adjourned.